You're watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.
Welcome into the Toronto Sports Rush here on the Bet Rivers Network. It is Monday, so it's Mondays with McGuire. Mondays with Pierre McGuire. Pierre, how you doing today?
Fantastic, EJ. How are you?
Doing well. Hey, listen, my social media feeds have been inundated with video of rookie camps all over the National Hockey League, all over North America. And so that tells me I only have a limited amount of time to play golf and to get ready to get back to work. So the Toronto Maple Leafs their rookie team, their rookie camp they had up in Montreal. They were part of the 2025 prospect showdown with Ottawa, Montreal, Toronto, Winnipeg. Couple of games. You know, you've been involved with this for a long time. You've got a son who is involved with the Minnesota Wild prospect camp, and I heard he did very well. So congratulations on that. Good luck to him. But what is that? What does it mean? I mean, there's so many of these young people that are trying to push forward. They're trying to live their dreams. You know, in the end, you know, in another 2-3 weeks, we may not talk about these guys again. But what does it mean, you know, for you as we get ready?
Well, for a lot of these young players, it allows them to solidify their opportunity to get to a big camp. Yeah. And then once you get to the big camp, then you can start to establish a reputation amongst the scouting staff of the team, the coaching staff of the team, and the biggest thing is the upper management of the team. And so it's really important that when you go to a rookie camp in particular or a prospects event like what we saw this past weekend all around the National Hockey League, the level of play, and I watched a lot of these, whether it was a games from California, was the games from Montreal, the games from Minnesota, the games from Buffalo. There were amazing games being played. The energy, the pace, the talent level of most of these players, EJ, was phenomenal. But the biggest thing is to try to make a reputation for yourself when you're going best on best with your peer group.
Yeah, so for the Toronto Maple Leafs, I guess a lot of the talk has been about the last two draft picks, so the 23 and 24 first-round picks. You had Easton Cowan, who I think most fans are familiar with by now, the 28th overall pick in 2023, and Ben Danford, who was the 31st pick in 2024. What did you make of with their situation? I know Cowan, I don't think, played in one of the two games for Toronto.
Yeah, both of them obviously were very familiar to fans, and I think they did well. What I'm finding the trend is with a lot of these prospect camps now, the younger guys are not nearly as dominant as the older guys. So I'll give you an example. You talk about Toronto. Luke Hames is a 22-year-old player that had 3 years at Dartmouth College. Yeah. He was phenomenal, a free agent out of Dartmouth. He was a signing this past spring. Jacob Quillen is 23 years of age. He went to the Salisbury School. He played in Penticton. He's already played a year and a bit of pro. He stood out. Ryan Teverberg played at University of Connecticut for 3 years. He's 23. He stood out for Toronto. And then finally, Ryan Kerwin, who played at Penn State for 3 years and also at Arizona State last year, where he had a huge year, he stood out. So what you're finding in a lot, I'm just using the Toronto portion. Yeah. Most of these players that are standing out with consistency, they're a little bit older. They're not 18, 19, or 20. They're 22, 23, and in some cases 24, but most of them are 22 and 23.
Well, it makes sense, right? They're a little older, a little bigger, a little stronger, and let's face it, probably a little hungrier in some cases because they weren't first-round draft picks, right? They weren't guys that people expect to be part of it. They're looking to make a name for themselves, so it makes sense that those guys are harder to deal with in these camps. I want to go back to Danford a bit. Like, you know, Easton Cowan, I think we've talked about even in our feed before. But what can you tell us about Danford? I mean, he's still young. He was at Oshawa, right shot defenseman, you know, average sized guy. What can he bring to the table down the road for the Leafs? Because I don't expect him to be part of the mix, certainly this season.
Consistency is a big part of his game. That's number one. Number two, they're live legs. Number three, ability to make a good first pass. There's a consistency factor to his game that I think is really positive and will help Toronto long term. But it's hard to make that jump. You know, I come from the day where I remember Brian Leach playing at Avon Old Farms, and he was just so much better than the other kids. I remember Scotty Niedermeyer playing with Daryl Sador and Kamloops, and how much better they were than the other kids. I'll never forget scouting Christopher Pronger when he played in Peterborough, just how good he was.
Mhm.
There are not a lot of guys like that.
Yeah.
For whatever reason, in football, it's hard to find tight ends and quarterbacks. In hockey, it's really hard to find defensemen, especially right shot defensemen, for whatever reason. So there's a development process that they all have to go through. And I think for Danford in particular, he's one of those guys who's going to have to go through that. But I think there's a consistency to his game that I find very, very good.
So we get ready now for the opening of, as you said, the big camp.
Mm-hmm.
The Toronto Maple Leafs, it doesn't seem like there's going to be a lot of battles for jobs, which I think is a good thing because the team is strong. They're coming off a good season last year. This has been a team that's been good for a while. They made some adjustments in the offseason, but we think we know what it's going to look like. What are some of the battles that will take place? What are some of the things that fans want to watch as camp begins and some of the preseason games unfold?
Who's going to be the guy that gets to replace Mitchell Marner playing with Austin Matthews and Matthew Nyes? That'll be number one. Number two, can Bobby McMahon earn his way to where the Leafs need him to be? Can it be a 15 to 25 goal scorer? Because it's important that Bobby play that way. I think can Nick Roy solidify that third line center position, really dominate it. And if he can, that's a job that's going to be really important. Can Scott Laughton be better now that he's familiar and comfortable being in his hometown than what he was last year? I think those are really important questions. But to me, the biggest one is who's going to be that guy, EJ, that's going to replace Mitchell Marner?
Yeah.
And, whether it's Max Domi, whether it's Willie Nylander, whether it's Mateus Michelli, I don't know. And I don't think they know either.
Yeah.
I think Domi gets the first chance at it, and I hope Max does really well. But if he doesn't do well, he's still going to be on the roster. They're just going to have to find a guy. I think Austin Matthews is going to have a huge year. Mm-hmm. The one thing, EJ, that I've found over the course, and you've been at these, so you know the same thing I know, when it's an Olympic year, and guys want to be part of it, and they know this is the first time there's been NHL players at the Olympics since 2014 in Sochi. Yeah. These guys, like McKinnon wants to be part of that, McDavid wants to be part of that, Matthews all these top guys. There's a legacy that goes along with this, and I think it all starts when they start playing for real with their NHL teams.
Yeah, maybe a little more juice heading into the season with what's on the table moving forward as we get towards the time to head to Italy in February of 2026. Let me go back to Easton Cowan because, again, this is a high-end prospect. I was looking at the numbers, Pierre, for him. He in 55 playoff games in the OHL, he had 94 points. That's significant. That's almost 2 points a game in playoff competition. So that's really good. Now he's part of that London Knights team, which is, they're loaded, right? So you're going to do well playing on a team like that. But where do you think he is right now, Easton Cowan? Because, can he be part of this year? This is a highly thought of prospect. He's a first-round pick. They didn't move him in any deals to get players maybe to help their current team. They have to see him as part of the future. Can he be part of it this year?
They made a decision last year, and it was very interesting to watch them make this decision. Do we keep Fraser Minton or do we keep Easton Cowan? They chose to move the centerman, Fraser Minton, who has amazing hockey sense. And by the way, he's one of those young prospects that did very well this weekend, that he's got NHL experience. And he was playing with a really good player out of UMass Amherst by the name of Dos Los Melis, who's got a legitimate chance to play in the National Hockey League as well. But anyways, that's another story for another city. But I think the biggest thing with Easton, honestly, EJ, is that he's got a flair for the dramatic. You touched on his playoff points. That's a phenomenal accomplishment. That's number one. Number two, you play for the Hunter brothers in London. They prepare you to play in the NHL. Dale Hunter is an NHL guy. Mark Hunter's an NHL guy. Yeah, they make their living in the Ontario Hockey League, but they're NHL guys. They know the process. So that's a big positive for Easton. And the third thing that I think is really important is he's won. He's not going to be intimidated by going into the Toronto market. A lot of young kids would be. I don't think he will be. So he's already got a leg up. And I think the biggest thing for him is to show that he's physically ready for the grind. It's one thing to think you are. It's another thing to know you are. And you'll never know that till you go through it.
Do you think, as we go through these these, the camp and the preseason games. I mean, do you think the plan is for him to be on the team?
I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that. I haven't talked to anybody there, whether it's Keith Pelly, whether it's Brad Treliving, whether it's Craig Berube. I haven't talked to any, but I have to think they're really seriously thinking about putting him on there. They gave Fraser Minton some reps last year in the NHL, and he did relatively well before he got moved out. But I do think, eventually you'll see him get these opportunities. And the team has 10 games to burn. So if they want to keep him up for 10, they can keep him up, And the biggest thing that's happened, I think, with this whole hockey thing with young players, the ability of players from major junior hockey to now go play Division I college hockey.
Yeah.
It's really, I've talked to so many coaches that whether they be in the USHL, the BCHL, major junior hockey, it's changed the dynamic, and it's going to change the dynamic for how kids are developed for the NHL.
Yeah, no question about it. I mean, I think it's a great path for those draft picks. I mean, see, Gavin McKenna's not even drafted yet. He's played at Penn State. That's a unique situation, but I do think for guys who were drafted this past year, I mean, some of them have signed, or Schaefer has signed and Misa has signed, but you see Porter Martone is going to think he's at Michigan State.
Yes.
I think it's a great path for those guys because, as you know, Pierre, I mean, you've been right up close. You've coached. You've been involved in hockey your whole life, but you've been right there watching the NHL action for many, many years from a really interesting point right next to the ice there. This is a hard league. And when guys are, 18 years of age, I mean, you got to be a special, special kid to come into the league and to thrive, not just survive. So for me, that opportunity to have that year or two playing college hockey now for those really elite prospects is a great opportunity. And you're right, it's a game changer, certainly for development all across North America, really all across the world.
I tell people this all the time. I'm a big Brady Tkachuk fan. I go so far back as I actually had his father in hockey camp when he was 16 years old at a thing called the Europa Cup. So I had Big Keith in hockey camp.
Yeah.
And the thing about Brady that's amazing, when Brady was in his draft year, he was a freshman, a first-year student at BU.
Yeah.
He had 8 goals his freshman year.
Yeah.
He had 8. His next year was in the NHL on a non-playoff team. He had 23.
Yeah.
You know what? Like, college hockey is a hard place to score. You have a whole week to prepare for usually one opponent because you play home and home or you play a 2-game set. Mm-hmm. It's hard. Everybody knows your strengths. Everybody knows your weaknesses, and they attack your weaknesses and they try to keep you away from your strengths.
Yeah. It's a great, I think, again, to go back to why I think it's a great path is just that, you're 18 years of age. You go back to junior, you've dominated there. You're playing against guys your age, maybe younger in some cases. You go to college, you're not playing like you're playing in the American League against maybe a 30-year-old, but you're playing against guys who are a little older, a little bigger, a little stronger. I think it's a better challenge. And to your point, you're only playing, you're playing less games. There's more time for personal development. There's more time for physical development. I just think it's a great step that is now open for anyone to go. So many kids play Canadian junior. I think it's just a nice piece of the development puzzle. We'll see how many guys take advantage of that. It'll be interesting to see how Porter Martone develops there at Michigan State, how McKenna does at Penn State. Should be an interesting year in college hockey for sure. Let me get you back to the Leafs and get you to the goaltending, because we had a story over the weekend about, Anthony Stolarz and the contract situation. Kevin Weeks, my colleague at NHL Network, a friend of both of ours, he was reporting that, that the sides are working towards something, and it is an interesting one because, Anthony has been really good over the last couple of years. Really good in Florida, 925 save percentage as a number 2 there. Steps up to Toronto, 926 last year. I mean, the only knock on Stolarz will be 32 in January. The only knock really is, can he stay healthy? Because he's had different injury problems in his career, but seemingly, I mean, he's kind of the number 1. Let's face it. They started him in the playoffs. That tells me they think he's their number 1. Joseph Wall's got a couple more years on his deal after this. He's at like 3.66, I believe it is. Stolarz is 2.5 against the cap this year. I would think Anthony would probably be willing to sacrifice some dollars for term and stability. What do you think that negotiation looks like?
I don't think it's that hard. I think Anthony really appreciates the fact Toronto took an opportunity on him. He gets a chance to go to play for an Original Six team in a major hockey market. He thrives there. They show him respect. His teammates obviously really appreciate him. I could see him obviously moving ahead of where Joe Woll is in terms of his salary. But I don't think it's that hard a negotiation. The other part, too, that I think is way under the radar is Dennis Hill to be signed to an extension, and that's very digestible up against the cap. So they've got pretty good goaltending depth, I think, in Toronto, especially if they can keep Anthony. But if you're a player like Anthony and you've kind of been kicked in the teeth most of your career, let's remember, Anthony started playing at Nebraska Omaha. He lasted 1 year there. Then he went to go play for the London Knights.
Yeah.
So it's he's been on a constant Ferris wheel of different teams. And it's not because people don't like him. He wouldn't keep getting opportunities if they didn't. But I think it's nice. And I've moved around a fair bit too. It's kind of nice when you can settle into one place. Yeah. And you can just say, hey, this is my home. This is where I live. And I really appreciate how people treat me here.
Yeah. No, now, this past weekend, Spencer Knight just signed a new deal with the Chicago Blackhawks. Now, he's a younger guy. He is a former first-round pick. He was acquired by the Hawks in a pretty significant trade. They see him as, their future goalie. His contract, I believe it was 3 years at 5.8 per year moving forward. So there's a different dynamic there for Spencer Knight. There's more cap room there probably in Chicago. So it's not an apples for apples kind of comparison, but does it impact at all the discussion that Stolarz and his agent Alain Roy are having with the Toronto Maple Leafs?
100%. You always use comparables, and Alain has been doing it for a long time, and he's a former goalie. He played at Harvard, and he was a good player there and played some pro hockey as well. He knows the goalie market really well, and so it does affect the negotiation that way, but both sides come with ammunition. I won't give you the names of players whose contracts I've negotiated over time, but you come with your facts, they come with their facts, and usually you can find a way to meet in the middle. The only line I don't like is when agents use the term, well, my player's a unicorn, because there's 725 to 30 jobs in the NHL, and they're not 735 unicorns.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Yeah, that's true.
So that's the only line I don't like, and I've had a lot of agents try to use that, and I'm like, no, this is who your player is similar to. But that being said, I don't think the Stolarz thing should be that difficult. I think that Toronto knows the value of the player. And the biggest question, and you presented it, EJ, and I thought in a really nice way, he's got to show that he can stay healthy. It's really important that he proved that this year.
Now, if you're looking at it from both sides, I would think for Stolarz, maybe he'd want 5 years, just for example.
Yeah.
I would think the Leafs, a player that'll be 32 in January that's had a history of some injury issues, despite playing very well of late, they might be looking for 2 or 3 years. I mean, is that the debate right now? I mean, I think the debate is more about term maybe than dollars.
It is. It totally is. So that's why there's going to have to be a compromise from both sides in terms of they want 5. Stolarz can't probably, and I agree with you, by the way. I think that's probably the round number for him. And the Leafs are probably saying 3. Stolarz Camp's probably saying, well, if Spencer Knight got almost $6 million a year, we'd like to get 4.5 or whatever. Yeah. So, and then they'll say, well, we don't want to go there, but we'll go 3 years at 4.2 or something, so there's always give and take in a negotiation. I have a hard time believing this will be a tough negotiation. I saw what, Ottawa did with Anton Forsberg a few years ago, and that was an easy negotiation. It turned out to be a real good contract for the kid and for the team. So those kinds of things shouldn't be that hard. And I don't think it will be.
Wall is at 3.6. Stolarz is at 2.5. So, that's pretty nice duo for less than $6 million, right? Yep. Or right around $6 million. My math is never that great. But, is it still a value if, Stolarz goes, let's say Stolarz doubles that number. Let's say Stolarz gets to $5 million. I mean, I think it's still a pretty good value to have 2 goalies with a cap going up, to have those 2 goalies at, let's say, a combined 8.6.
100%. And let's remember, too, you moved the Marner contract away.
That's right.
That's very fair. The one thing that I've noticed, and I'm sure you've probably looked at it as well, everybody says the cap's going up, but look at how many teams aren't even spending close to the cap. If you look at the bottom half of the league, there's almost 16 teams that are $4 million or more dollars below the cap. And you've got some teams that are $10 and $12 million below the cap. So there's a lot of internal caps there. I think Toronto will always be a cap team. I think they'll always try to create a little wiggle room for themselves. But you made a great point, and I completely cede you the point is if you have one goalie at, let's say, 3.5 and the other one at 5, you're at 8.5. New York Rangers are paying one goalie $12 million.
That's right. Yeah.
So, I mean, I think that's a very digestible number for a team that's elite.
Pierre, before we let you go, I wanted to get your thoughts on what's gone on, or what the contract situation, some of these star players in terms of extension, in particular, what we're seeing in Minnesota, with Kirill Kaprizov, because there was a report last week and a pretty reputable source on it about, him turning down an 8 times $16 million deal. These negotiations, as we just talked about it, right? They're tense. There's a lot of money. There's a lot of term. It's a lot on the line. I don't know. And listen, we never really know if a guy really wants to be somewhere, right? Like the only way you know is when they sign. That's it. I mean, because people could say and do everything they want until they sign. That's when they make a statement that they want to be somewhere. True. What do you make of this situation in particular? Because the market pressure in Minnesota is such that, I mean, they went through all the pain with the Parise contract and the Suter contract and buying them out. This guy is such an important piece of the puzzle. He's probably the best player in their franchise history.
Yep.
What do you think this is going to look like moving forward?
I think eventually they get a deal done. I don't think it's that easy to do. He's a high-profile player. I think the agent's feeling pressure. A lot of people are saying, well, if he doesn't sign, or if he does sign, what does that do to Connor McDavid long term? So I think there's a lot of market pressure on both the team from the other owners and also from the NHLPA on the agent and the player. But I do eventually think it gets done. If I were in his camp, I'd want term. So if I could do the max at 8, I'd want to do that, which obviously they can. If it's 16 or 17, I don't know. It's a rounding error once you get to those numbers.
A lot of money, baby.
It's a lot of money. I think eventually it gets done, and I think he stays. I think it was Larry Brooks in the Post made the point about the rain. Like people think he's going to go to the Rangers. I don't see how that happens. I just don't see cap wise how they can do that long term.
I mean, I think the only way something like that could happen is if they decide to move on from Panarin at the end of the year, because that would open up money. Yeah. But, that's one of the reasons maybe why he would be interested in going there, right, to play with Panarin. So, I mean, listen, there's only so many dollars. Even if the cap goes up, there's only so many dollars. And you're right, the Rangers have some significant contracts like a lot of these really good teams do. I'll be interested to watch to see what happens there. Obviously, with McDavid, with Eichel, and several of these players, we're in an interesting time, right, Pierre? The cap is going up; it's going to go up down the road. Some of the rules are changing. Like you can get 8 years now; you're only going to be able to get 7 moving forward, right? Yeah. So there's a lot of moving pieces here. It'll be interesting to watch, but I'll let you enjoy the rest of your day, my friend, and always good to spend some time with you. Camps are opening up. We're all getting busy again, so I have to get my last round or 2 in and get ready to get back to work.
Good for you, AJ. Thanks a lot. I had a blast with you this Monday. Thank you.
All right. That's Pierre McGuire. It's Mondays with McGuire right here on the Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.
Thanks for watching Toronto Sports Rush on the Bet Rivers Network.